Good evening, live from ZTN headquarters in Harare, Zimbabwe, the sunshine capital of the world, we believe, here in Zimbabwe. Welcome to The Chase. Tonight is part of our series of discussions looking at Zimbabwe's political dialogue, and tonight, the youth perspective. Now, this live broadcast is brought to you by ZANU-PF's TV network and our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, and Diamond FM, and of course, Voice of America, going out to 80 channels worldwide. So wherever you are, welcome to The Chase. And of course, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Good evening, I'm Andy Hodges.
And I am Linda Muriro. Welcome to our millions of viewers joining us online from all over the world, Africa, the Middle East, Asia, America, and Europe. And we would like you to be part of this conversation online. You can send us your views via our Twitter handle at ZTN News and on Facebook, ZANU-PF's TV network. So make sure we hear your voice.
Yes, we want to hear from you. Now, to our esteemed panelists. Now, you'll be asked a question and asked to respond. You'll be given 1 minute to make your submissions. Now, interjections, of course, may be there from time to time, but we please ask that you keep those civil yet vibrant and make your contributions, if any, through myself or Linda. You will be given a chance to talk, so do not be concerned about that. Here at ZTN, our values are dignity, dialogue, and debate.
And now we kindly ask each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves to our audience.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Andy. My name is Setfree Mafukidze. I'm the head of recruitment and mobilization for youth advocates for reform and democracy.
Good evening and good evening, viewers. My name is Louis Matutu. I'm the Deputy Secretary for Youth Affairs in the ZANU-PF Youth League. And I'm also the head of Youth Affairs Department, full-time working for the party. I'm a Central Committee member and I'm a full Politburo member within the organization.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, Zimbabwe. My name is Comrade Terra Obestole. I'm the Youth Commander for Movement for Democratic Change.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Linda. Good evening, leaders. My name is Stephen Mazanza. I am the Zimbabwe People First, a spokesperson and National Youth Chairman. Yeah.
Now, Zimbabwe finds itself at a time whereby dialogue between ordinary citizens and political parties is very vital to make us move forward in terms of our economic growth and political growth. Have a look at this clip. See what you think.
As the Second Republic rolls into motion, it remains to be seen whether young people will play a direct role in Zimbabwean politics. Most young people in the country have long called for an inclusive role in politics, as they are often used as agents of violence. Many politicians have for long pushed for the mantra that the youths are leaders of tomorrow, when in essence they are actually leaders of today. Youths themselves have now come out of their cocoons to say they must not be used as merchants of violence in political issues, but rather as participants in dealing with pressing national issues. Youth participation in electoral and governance processes can go a long way in ensuring inclusion, coexistence, maintenance and preservation of peace. Across the globe, conflict has erupted, especially when certain sections of society feel neglected as far as development, resource allocation and general participation on matters of human development and national growth are concerned. Young people are undoubtedly the most formidable group that, if neglected, particularly on issues of governance and democracy, can pose a threat to the peace and stability of any nation. The political and social terrain of any country's backbone is mostly supported by the youth, who comprise at least 51% of the world's population, while in Zimbabwe they constitute 77% and 43.5% of the voting population. The youth are traditionally politically active in secondary and tertiary education sectors, but are very often disillusioned with political leadership and political institutions and excluded from policy development. The Zimbabwe Council of Churches, ZCC, is concerned about the declining economic situation in the country and believes it has a role to play in fostering an environment where brother meets brother, sister meets sister, in the spirit of understanding and peace. The ZCC is sponsoring this episode of The Chase. This discussion will help us all understand what is holding back the process of dialogue, what issues need to be discussed, why the youths are not equally represented, and to what extent they are contributing in their political parties, and how their united voice will assist to solve the economic and social challenges obtaining in the country.
Now, before we leap into our debate, just like to say that the views expressed on The Chase are from the participants involved in the discussion and do not reflect the views of ZTN or Zim Papers Group. Now then, gentlemen, let's leap straight in. Now, Lewis, ZANU-PF Youth League has been in the forefront of supporting the Pollard process. Why do you think that this initial political dialogue is important for Zimbabwe?
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your question. Maybe to start with, I would say that whenever in any society, be it political organizations, be it a government, even church, like ZCC, there is need to talk, there is need to dialogue. Not because there are problems, but because people need to share ideas and understand each other as they move forward, as they implement certain things that they expect in their own society. Now, when you look at our country, we are coming from an election, 2018 election, which to me is come and it's gone, and we cannot even talk about that election now, but we need to prepare for 2023 because that's when we're having the next election. But there are certain things that when we look at them, we would say we need to hear each and every person's voice. We need to look at other people's ideas and consider them, if they are constructive, to make sure that as a country we have a direction that is owned by each and every citizen. And us as young people, whatever is being done today is actually being prepared for us in future, even if we were to participate and be involved today. Now, dialogue gives us an opportunity, a great opportunity, if I may say, now to sit down and say, what do you have? What do you think? Why do you think this must be done this way, not that way? And why do you think that is important? And how do you think that can be implemented in a sober manner and a civilized way, in a way that shows a lot of humility and understanding that whatever engagement that is being done for the people of Zimbabwe, not for us as individuals in our different leadership capacities or positions of authority. Now, to me, I view leadership as very important and very critical when I look at that direction.
Obe, would you have any comment to that? Because I know that your own party president, Nelson Chamisa, has come out in support of dialogue. I think he's called that dialogue is something that we should do as Zimbabweans. What would your comment be to Lewis?
Okay, thank you so much for that opportunity to respond to your question. Yes, indeed, the president has talked about dialogue, but our position is clear, especially whilst I'm speaking on behalf of the young people of Zimbabwe and the young people of the Movement for Democratic Change. While this dialogue might be a good thing, but we also have great concern with regards to the framework of the dialogue. I think, as we alluded earlier on, there's the Pollard which I'm talking about. If you go back to the background of this political dialogue, it was called upon by one individual, Emmerson Mnangagwa. And that is actually a danger to the people of Zimbabwe, because from one point, he's also a political actor. So what you're simply saying is that one cannot be a player and at the same time be the referee as well in a certain match. So what you're saying, if it's to be a dialogue, let it be a dialogue that is based on neutrality. We need someone who can moderate, who has no interest whatsoever. But more fundamentally, I also fear the young people. We do not necessarily have to wait for the process of dialogue. While this dialogue is being dealt with from a certain angle by the elders, we as the young people also have alternatives that we can also utilize. We have the constitutional rights that we can also pursue to ensure that we bring these guys from ZANU-PF who stole the people's victory in 2018 on the negotiating table using our own standards. It's unfortunate that my brother has also given us some misleading sentiments that the previous election has come and gone. That's not true. The election came, but it's not yet gone, because the crisis that we are facing today is a product of a rigged election. So what you need to do is to return to legitimacy. And how do you do that? We need to ensure that they agree that they did not win the election. And that is a fact. Yes, we might say he's the president today, but you all followed what happened in the 2018 election. People even killed just for standing up to protest against their stolen victory. So if you don't have closure on those issues, then we cannot progress as a nation. The whole issues of dialogue can be a fallacy.
Okay, but your party itself stands for the rule of law. I think you've been clearly saying that you stand for the rule of law.
Indeed.
And the election did go as high as the Constitutional Court, where the Constitutional did rule that the President Emmerson Mnangagwa was rightfully elected as president. So how do you balance between your party saying that you go for the rule of law, but you're fighting legitimacy even though the highest court in the land said he was legitimate?
Rightly so. As a party, we fight for rule of law. But within the fight for rule of law, we also say we don't need to have compromised institutions. If you go back to our journey, while it's advocating for electoral reforms in Zimbabwe, this is also part of the thing that we're referring to. We're saying the judiciary system must be independent, not to have a captured institution like the judiciary system that we currently have. You know what? Going to the court, it was already a late entry because we knew that the outcome was predetermined. Some of those judgments are done in the comfort of those judges' homes without necessarily following the right principles of law. This is what you are battling with. We are saying going forward, if we are to have a legitimate government and to have an election that is not contested, we don't want to continuously contest the outcome of elections. But how do we ensure that the election results are not contested? It's by ensuring that the institutions are independent. They are not captured. Therefore, they can guarantee a free and fair election to the people of Zimbabwe. As it stands right now, I want to be honest with you, my brother, these guys from ZANU-PF, they've captured all the institutions, and that is very dangerous. We don't want to proceed in that manner. We need the institutions to be very independent. And also, we need to demilitarize all these institutions, be it ZEC, even in the judiciary. You cannot even explain why you can also have some military personnel there.
Okay, thank you. I think, Lewis, you can respond.
Yeah, sure. Well, I understand Obey. He is my brother, my young brother, and I understand him because he's coming in as the new leader of the MDC Assembly, and perhaps it is critical for him that he makes sure that he does something which was not done before. And also, he's under pressure to prove that those that were there before him were not doing well, and he's trying to do something better. But let me come to what you are saying regarding the issue of a stolen victory, the issue of a stolen election. The challenge that we have as a country is that we live politics, we dream politics, we eat politics. We want everything to be about politics. That's where you get it wrong. Now, we have an election, we had an election in 2018. And now for people to keep on referring to that same election and take it as a basis of determining how we're going to move forward is very dangerous. If I look at what his party, Obey's party, MDC is saying, they are saying when you talk of dialogue, we cannot have dialogue without Nelson Chamisa, who is their president. Oh, by the way, the president of this country is President Emmerson Mnangagwa. I have to remind you that. But I'm saying their president is saying there's no dialogue without myself, meaning Nelson Chamisa. But if you look at it, what is exactly the reason, the core purpose of the dialogue is not about those people who participated in an election, because we can no longer talk about an election. We need to talk about the country. We need to talk about the economy. We need to talk about social services. We need to talk about the issues of employment for young people. Those issues need time. Those issues need attention. Now, if we talk of captured institutions, I don't blame Obey for saying that, because that is something, the mentality, the views that is carrying out from his leadership, that ZANU-PF has captured everything. The ZANU-PF government has captured the judiciary and stuff. But in actual fact, how can you say that the same law that you obey, oh, by the way, that's your name, eh? The same law that you obey when it's in favor of you is the same law that you disobey because it is rebuking you, or rather making sure that you don't do something that is unconstitutional. We have to have institutions, political organizations that respect the law. If people say they stand for rule of law, it is the same law
That's derived from the Constitution.
The other panelists to come through. Set free, what are your sentiments as YARD regards the dialogue and the participation of youths in this conversation?
Well, thank you so much, Linda. As YARD, we actually look forward to the involvement of youth in this dialogue. It's not necessarily about political parties alone, because political parties do not constitute the numbers that youth have in the country. So what we are saying as YARD is we want young people to be involved in this national dialogue. From whichever organization, we want young people involved. All these days we've been seeing Emerson Mnangagwa and his other bunch of losing candidates doing tours around the country, wasting state resources. That's not the way a national dialogue is supposed to go. We want youth to be involved, and we want youth to sit down and talk to the national leadership on the way forward for Zimbabwe. Look, the people who are suffering the most out there are young people. Why? Because they are, demographically they constitute the biggest percentage of in our population. So we need to have youth included. It's unfortunate that national dialogue might not take place at all, because if the views I'm hearing from my two brothers, Louis and Tererai, are anything to go by, then we can easily say there is no dialogue that is coming. Okay. Why? Because we'll be stuck on discord.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Andy. Well, I believe the youth are the future of this country. Our involvement in Poland is very important in shaping the future of this nation. Going back to what my brothers here are fighting over, I don't see if there is anything fighting over anyway, because he's talking about legitimacy. He's still saying we are the ruling party. But we are saying let's sit down like what they're doing now. This is the start of the dialogue, I believe. We come together like what we're doing now. We sit down, we talk about what the youth need for this country to be done. Regarding legitimacy, to me, sorry, my brother, it's now in void, because we can't still be standing on the same place. Let's start moving forward. Let's build our country together. So let's just accept that this is what's on the ground and start building.
Now, Obey, as a youth leader who is a political actor, this particular dialogue we're talking about is a dialogue for political actors. Was it not prudent or necessary for your party to come to the table and bring forward those issues, those concerns that you raise as part of the conditions or the framework for the dialogue to proceed?
Okay, I think I made it clear earlier on to say we have no problem with dialogue if you have to have a dialogue. But the person calling for dialogue in the initial place, he has no local standard to be calling for a dialogue, because there's no authority. We are saying he's not a legitimate president, and you are clear on that. And the facts are there on ground. As a party, we know that we won the election, the previous election of 2018, with over 2.6 million votes. What you are simply saying is that they should recognize that we are the winners of the previous election if we are to have a dialogue. If anything, we as a party, we have people at heart before we go anywhere else. The crisis that the people of Zimbabwe are facing, we are also not happy with it. But we know the product. We know who are the architectures. It is because of the failures of ZANU-PF. And let me tell you, this current crisis that we are facing as a nation can never be addressed without addressing the question of legitimacy. Only legitimate leaders can solve national crises. So what you are simply saying, we have no problem whatsoever. While if they can feel that dialogue is important, we are simply saying, first of the conditions is to ensure that you agree that in the previous election, the person who won this election is Advocate Nelson Chamisa. If they can't agree while you are talking to them with the words, we can also then make them understand that we are the people who won the previous election using our constitutional rights of occupying the streets through mass demonstrations. And mind you, I know Matut might start to incite his people that they can fight back. We are not going to be violent in any way. What we are simply going to do is to defy the oppression of this in this country. Emerson Mnangagwa cannot continue, not ruling by the way, ruining this nation The people of Zimbabwe have suffered for long, and that should be brought to an end. This is why we are saying dialogue is not enough, and dialogue, as it stands with the current conditions, is not a solution at all, because it won't address the root cause. It won't address a symptom. This is what we are saying no to.
Okay, Obey, thank you. From your party's position, you're saying that ZANU-PF needs to concede that they're illegitimate. ZANU-PF is saying that, in fact, they are legitimate as proven by the Constitutional Court. They have a president and they have the mandate to rule as a ruling party, okay? But the way that we're talking here, it's like then dialogue can never happen if there's no form of compromise by either. Is that a true statement?
No. The person
is it not the ordinary people suffering by the MDC and ZANU not talking?
No, let me clarify on that one. The person who must concede, is only Emmerson Mnangagwa. Because what he is trying to do is to bring a framework that he is not qualified to do. He can't be calling for a dialogue when he's not a winner of any election. That is where we have a problem. Emmerson Mnangagwa knows right away where he's seated right now. And even Louis can testify if he wants to be honest. ZANU-PF did not win.
All right, are we not flogging a dead horse? Is your party not flogging a dead horse by insisting around talks around the issue of legitimacy, yet the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which was overwhelmingly voted for by all and sundry, including members of your party, clearly states that the Constitutional Court is the highest body that determines or makes a determination as far as electoral dispute is concerned?
You know what? I like the way you put it. You asked me on whether we are not flogging a dead horse. Let me be clear with you. We are not flogging a dead horse. Why? Because for as long as the issue that I'm raising here are not addressed.
Was the MDC not part of the constitution-making process?
It was. And earlier on, my dear comrade, I think I clarified that the Constitution is there. But what we are against is the capture of institutions. It's one thing to have a Constitution, but it's another thing to have the constitutionalism practice. This is what is also lacking in the country of Zimbabwe. Those guys in ZANU-PF who claim to be the ruling party, when we all know that it's a ruling party, do not respect the national constitution. A lot of things are being done in the wrong way, including the capture of a judiciary system. Never believe the outcome that came from the Constitutional Court. That was not a judgment free, a free and fair judgment. It was a compromised judgment.
And yet, with the knowledge that the system is captured, your party still went ahead and approached the court.
Indeed, because this is a test. This is the legitimate route. This is the legal route to pursue. But you know, we are a political organization. We pursue the legal route, and we did so. They didn't understand the legal route. We have a political route to pursue. And this is what I'm talking about. We are going forward as the young people, specifically, the young people of Zimbabwe that I lead. They failed to understand the legal route of going to the court and admitting that they lost an election. Now we also have to occupy the streets using the same constitution, because Section 59, by the way, guarantees everyone, including yourself. You must also be joining us in a few days to come as we go and occupy the streets of Zimbabwe.
Louis, please, I think you need to respond.
You see, I just like what I said before, I understand why Obey is doing all this and is saying all these things. Yes, it's true that you indicated as a press conference that you did a few days ago that you want to go to the streets and you want to remove President Mnangagwa. But so the challenge that we have, as you can see, I try to keep the calm and show you as a brother that there is a thing that is called maturity in politics. In whatever level, maturity makes the day, because you make decisions while you are sober and you understand why they are critical. Now, if we keep on referring to the legitimacy issue, then we are making fools out of ourselves as a nation, because we will never go back to 2018 and run another election. But if someone wants to rule this country, if they think that they are better, they will have to work so that they can win 2020 election. I look at MDC and ask myself, what policy, economic policy that they have, that they can put on the table, besides demonstrations, besides talking of legitimacy, besides saying that the dialogue that is there is useless, is meaningless. They don't have any economic policy that they can talk about. Now, what kind of a political organization are you looking at? If you think of saying that young people of this country, okay, let's just say young people who support MDC Alliance would want to do demonstrations, but history has told us that there has never been peaceful demonstrations coming from your political organization. We have seen early this year people's shops being looted. We have seen infrastructure being destroyed. We have seen money, goods being looted. We have seen people dying because of a so-called peaceful demonstration, which has got some political connotations that cannot explain and define who we are.
Now, Lewis, what mechanisms has your party put in place to ensure that this dialogue is inclusive, including members from the opposition who have a stronghold in this country as well?
President Mnangagwa is the president of this country. And if anyone is to initiate any process, it is the president. As a father figure, should be able to say. And
from a youth perspective?
Can I finish what I'm trying to say so that you get my response is not what you want me to say? So I say, you see, you should be able to say everyone must come and let's discuss, right? And he has been open to everyone. He has always been saying whoever feels that he or she would want to be part of this dialogue, let's come and sit down, let's discuss our country's issues, let's discuss issues of development. But it is up to individuals or individual organizations to opt out or in terms of the dialogue. And no one is being dragged or forced to participate in that dialogue because, after all, they represent their people. They claim to have a lot of support. But all those people, all that support require leadership, proper leadership. Not leadership that is selfish, not leadership that is looking for power, not leadership that is willing to force the current government so that they can be accommodated in some kind of arrangement. We have to make sure that we roll after an election, and we have to make sure that we dialogue for the sake of the people that we lead, not for our own sake. And people must not have pride over national issues. Neither people must use emotions to drive and solve important national issues.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Setri and Stephen, don't worry, we're coming to you. Because now let's get into the crux. Obviously, you represent the youth in all your parties. Okay, so I want to know what specific concerns that the youth need to be addressed and included in any form of dialogue. And I'm looking for specifics because you represent youth. What specifically would you like to see included for youth in the dialogue? Maybe I can start with you, Seth.
Okay. In any national dialogue, the youth should be included in everything. Like I said in the first place, the youth constitute a bigger number than anyone else in the
system. But what specifically?
Every sector. Yeah, every sector of Zimbabwe, youth need to get involved. Youth are very keen and raring to go. But now the problem is they are the people from the older generation that are blocking young people from rising. Okay. For example, I'll give you an example of Louis' party. Louis is Deputy Secretary for Youth Affairs in ZANU-PF. Why? Because there's Pupuraito Garepi, who is about, close to 60 years old, sitting on that position which should rightfully be held by a person of Louis's age. So that alone is a problem on its own. We need people who understand that young people's time is now. It is never tomorrow, and it has to be now. When we have appointments being made in parastatals, whatever, you name it, we don't care if Emerson Mnangagwa appoints anyone from his party, but why doesn't he consider young people? Young people are not considered. Recently we had an embarrassing appointment of Patrick Chinamasa to the Air Zimbabwe board. That is very embarrassing. A 75-year-old sitting on a board, while we have in Africa, Rwanda has got very young people leading Rwanda Air. So what exactly are we saying when we take old people and maintain old people since 1980 in all our institutions? What we are saying is young people don't matter. Okay. So we are actually speaking against that kind of attitude.
All right, thank you, Cedric. Yes. Lewis, we really want to get here to specifics. Imagine that you're sitting at a table, forget about the other issues around it, and then someone says to you, you're representing the youth. What issues would you like to be included in the dialogue that directly affects youth? What would be your answer?
All right, thank you for that question, but perhaps in politics don't leave anything unattended. Before I come to that, yes, it's true, Pupuraito Garepi is very old. I agree with you. He's actually 56. And what you need to understand is that each and every organization, we have our own structures. I'm an elected leader of young people. I come from young people. They elected me to be their youth leader. And Pupuraito Garepi is an appointee of the president, sitting in the Politburo, representing the interests of the president. I represent young people. But coming to your question, I think my brother is very correct to say that young people should be involved throughout in this dialogue. We want to see issues, economic issues being discussed as part of that dialogue by young people, because we are the majority and we are the future, while it's also leaders today. We want to see issues of politics, political affairs being discussed as part of that dialogue. While it's to see young people being the majority, so that we shape our own future on our own. We want to see people discussing in that dialogue issues to do with our relations with other countries, the importance of international relations. Let it be discussed in that dialogue. We want to see, issues to do with religion, because we've realized that it's one source of our problems when it comes to politics. Let's discuss these issues, but young people in the forefront. We want to see issues of unemployment being discussed. What can you do about young people? Empowerment of young people. Let's discuss that. It must form the core of our dialogue, and perhaps shelve, too much politics, which doesn't help us as young people. We don't eat politics. We don't put on politics. We don't buy commodities using politics. So I want to see economic issues taking a center stage in this dialogue, so that we shape our economy, we shape our future. And where an economy is stable, where people are able to live their lives according to their expectations, usually conflict is minimized. So that's what we would want to see as part of that.
Obey, one thing is interesting is that I always hear jobs, jobs, jobs. Yeah, that's also important. Obey, what would you say if I said to you, what would you like to put on the table as youth that should be included in any form of dialogue?
Okay, thank you so much. I like the way you put it, said any form of dialogue, because if it was going to be specific on this one, I wasn't going to put an input. But well, before I come to that, I also want to correct my brother with regards to the understanding of politics. I've heard him twice or 3 times saying he doesn't eat politics. That's regrettable, because let me tell you a simple definition of politics. It's so politics is all about what you eat, when and how. So if you don't understand that matrix, probably that is why we are also having this crisis, because of leaders in ZANU-PF who actually don't understand what politics should be in a certain direction.
To that corner.
So what I'm simply saying...
Can I interject on that one?
Give me my time.
To continue?
Give me my time.
You have to be careful now.
Give me my time. Give me my time. So going forward, politics is all about what you do. It's a decision of what kind of water you're drinking today. Whether it's ZLG or Vivon, it's about the price tag. But if you look behind the price tag, you see that there's politics at play. Fuel price increase. When they increase, it's also a political decision. So politics is eaten. Politics is put on. But anyway, let me go back to what you've asked, to say what are the issues that I want to see addressed on behalf of the young people. We have a major issue here in Zimbabwe, the issue of unemployment. Right now, the economy is sustaining on the informal economy. There's no more formal employment. Unemployment is up to skyrocketing figures of 95%. This is because industries have been shutting down. Right now, we have so many graduates who have come out of school, but they can't be employed, yet they're employable. This is a challenge that we need to see addressed going forward. And I'm sure our government will be able to address those issues. Another issue that we also need to see addressed that also affects the young people is about the education. Going back to the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Section 75, is clear that education is a right. But considering the current status quo, you realize that education has been reduced from a right to a privilege, because only those who can afford are the ones going to school. And this is affecting the youth, the young people, but the majority of them are the ones who are going to school. We need to see those things being addressed. Yes, they might be justifying themselves to say we don't have enough resources to fund education for free. But let me tell you, Zimbabwe is a rich country with regards to natural resources. What is lacking is the proper conversion of those resources into financial gains. Corruption is under challenge. So the young people are also saying, going forward, corruption must not exist in this nation. It also brings me to the issue of financial discipline. What you are lacking in this country is financial discipline. In the midst of an economic crisis, you see someone by the name, who is this guy, Mwakalyelye, importing a very expensive Lamborghini. So the question is, where are the people of Zimbabwe when the ZANU-PF guys are doing all those things? So going forward, we need to see those things being addressed.
Thank you. Stephen, please.
So, Andy, I feel sad when we talk about problems that affect the youth in this country. like my peers have just put across, there are plenty. But going into specifics, like he just said, we've got unemployment, education. You know, you can name a lot of those problems that affect us as youth. But I was hoping you'd ask me the question of how are we going to tackle them? How are we going to tackle them? One, like he said, let's avoid corruption. The leaders should let us sit down, make our own decisions regarding our future. Because at this moment in juncture, we are, the youth have no future at all. These guys I'm sitting with here are all in it, I trust, and I know, I believe. But then what? We, like you just said, the other guys, the other youth in the roads there, they don't eat politics. We are the guys here who can make those decisions for them. So I say to you guys, let's sit down with our elders, our president, even your president. Ask him to come and listen to the youth.
Now, Lewis, we are talking about the participation of youths in this political dialogue, and Set Free made reference to the issue of the participation of youths. Is your party supportive? Are the structures supportive enough for the inclusion and participation of youths in all the aspects of various sectors of the economy?
Yes, before I come to that, I always make sure that everything else has been attended. When we say that young people don't eat politics, what we are saying is politics cannot be taken as a priority over other things that are critical in our lives as a country. It is very dangerous for my brother Obey to try to measure my level of education or my way of understanding certain things, because in that area I think I'm way far what he can understand as an individual. But anyway, coming to your question, what our party is doing to make sure that we accommodate more and more young people. Firstly, we are pushing to make sure that on this dialogue, young people must take a center stage and young people must be involved. I'm sure when I looked at how it is structured, I realized that they would want to accommodate young people, but I think they must go further to do more than what they've done just now. Now, as a party, we feel that we can only move forward when young people are being involved in what is happening in the country.
But has your party allowed young people to be fully involved?
I'm getting there, and if you allow me, I'll respond to you. Now, what we have done so far is to make sure that in each and every sector, at each and every level of organization, young people must be heard, and young people must be driving our activities and organization. I'll just give you 3 examples. Firstly, we realized that we have been talking about empowerment of young people for quite a very long time. The old dispensation have been trying it, but not to any success because we didn't see any results.
Give us examples of what the new dispensation has done as far as youth are concerned.
If I may say that, in as much as I appreciate the way you ask me, I also want to appreciate the way I'm responding so that you can get what I think, not you pushing me the way you would want me to respond.
Okay, please.
So that you understand where I'm coming from.
Please go ahead.
I was talking about the first thing. In our structures, as we do empowerment projects right now, we have got young people who are into agriculture. As I'm talking right now, we've got at least 10 hectares of land per each and every administrative district to educate young people as an incubation center where you're educating young people on horticulture, on poultry and other projects. That's coming from our party. The second thing that we are doing as a party is to make sure that we capacitate our young people in terms of knowledge and understanding of how to run small businesses. Because if you look at great economies of this world, they are being owned by young entrepreneurs, people who are doing small businesses. We have young people who are producing chemicals. We have young people who are into carpentry. That is coming from our party, and our young people are driving that. But the most important one, which is the third one, we have said we need to make sure that to teach our young people financial discipline. That's something that I can borrow from him, and I agree with him on that one, that we have to be financially disciplined. We have to understand the value of money and the need to spend what we earn, what we work for. So this we're teaching our young people. Unless our young people have got that understanding that they need to be responsible, they need to have discipline, otherwise we can talk of empowerment, we can talk of leadership, without any success, because that is key in young people.
Now, you're watching The Chase live from ZTN headquarters in Harare, Zimbabwe, and of course, going through our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM in Kariba, and Diamond FM in Mutare. And of course, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches, and one of our main broadcast partners, Voice of America, going out to 80 channels worldwide. Now, we're going to have to take a breather, but please don't go anywhere, because obviously the debate is warming up, and we're finding out what youth needs, what youth want in the dialogue. We'll see you right now. Welcome back to The Chase, live from ZTN studios in Harare, Zimbabwe. This is Zimbabwe's political dialogue, a youth's perspective. Now, we'd like to thank our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, Diamond FM, and Voice of America, going out to you, 80 subsidiary countries around the world. So we'd like to say hello to all of you here from the studio. And of course, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Now, we did a little clip for you to understand the issues that surround youth and the dialogue in it. Have a watch of this, and we'll continue the dialogue afterwards.
As the Second Republic rolls into motion, it remains to be seen whether young people will play a direct role in Zimbabwean politics. Most young people in the country have long called for an inclusive role in politics, as they are often used as agents of violence. Many politicians have for long pushed for the mantra that the youths are leaders of tomorrow, when in essence they are actually leaders of today. Youths themselves have now come out of their cocoons to say they must not be used as merchants of violence in political issues, but rather as participants in dealing with pressing national issues. Youth participation in electoral and governance processes can go a long way in ensuring inclusion, coexistence, maintenance and preservation of peace. Across the globe, conflict has erupted, especially when certain sections of society feel neglected as far as development, resource allocation, and general participation on matters of human development and national growth are concerned. Young people are undoubtedly the most formidable group that, if neglected, particularly on issues of governance and democracy, can pose a threat to the peace and stability of any nation. The political and social terrain of any country's backbone is mostly supported by the youth, who comprise at least 51% of the world's population, while in Zimbabwe they constitute 77% and 43.5% of the voting population. The youth are traditionally politically active in secondary and tertiary education sectors, but are very often disillusioned with political leadership and political institutions and excluded from policy development. The Zimbabwe Council of Churches, ZCC, is concerned about the declining economic situation in the country and believes it has a role to play in fostering an environment where brother meets brother, sister meets sister, in the spirit of understanding and peace. The ZCC is sponsoring this episode of The Chase. This discussion will help us all understand what is holding back the process of dialogue, what issues need to be discussed, why the youths are not equally represented, and to what extent they are contributing in their political parties, and how their united voice will assist to solve the economic and social challenges obtaining in the country.
Well, there you go, Rich. That's what it says. And, of course, brother meeting brother, sister meeting sister. That's, of course, Zimbabwe Council of Churches. And I think those sentiments are very strong.
Now, the issue of political violence, Obey, and hate speech has been a source of major concern. And youths have been synonymous with those two vices. Earlier on, you did mention that your party would eliminate President Emmerson Mnangagwa, and in some sections it was said to be insightful. What is your comment to that?
Okay, I like that you also have that concern. The term eliminate is a simple word in English, which means complete removal. And indeed, I meant what I said. We are not apologetic with regards to removing Emmerson Mnangagwa out of power, simply because he's an illegitimate leader. But how are we going to be doing that? That is a question that you must be asking. And I think I've talked a lot about it. We are going to exercise our constitutional right, which we are guaranteed as the citizens of Zimbabwe, to demonstrate and petition against any forms of oppression, like what is happening right now. And the other thing that I also need to highlight at this particular moment, the continued occupation of Emmerson Mnangagwa with regard to the position of the president of this nation, or at the continued ruining of ZANU-PF in this country, is actually a threat to national stability. Why do I say so? The people can get fed up with the continued suffering, because people are hungry, let me tell you. And you know, there's a cliche that always says a hungry man is an angry man. So, when people are hungry, they can then mobilize each other.
Questions.
They can then send a clear message.
Of the use of the word eliminate, that it is too heavy, that for a leader of your stature, it might be misleading to the youths, the grassroots youths that you represent.
No, it's now an issue of semantics, because I could have alternatively said Toda Kumubvisa. So it's about the language.
What do the mass demonstrations are seek to achieve?
Just allow me to proceed. I think you've asked me. Now it's my time to respond. I'm simply saying it's about the word, but the process is what I've explained. And there's nothing amiss with rising up as the young people of Zimbabwe to say enough is enough with regards to the governance of Emmerson Mnangagwa. We have suffered a lot at the hands of ZANU-PF. And what I'm simply saying is that even worldwide, it's known that people power is mightier than people in power. So this is what we are simply saying. We are going to mobilize each other to ensure that our power becomes stronger to deal with the people in power. We have brought the suffering of the young people of Zimbabwe. Okay. As simple as that.
All right, thanks,
it will work.
Thank you.
Simple.
Stephen, I think the point Linda is making quite well is that, when you speak as leaders, because you are leaders, whether you're leaders of the youth or whatever in your party, the fact is words matter. Yeah. So what would be your comments to some of the words like eliminate and so forth in terms of in the political space?
And to me, it's sad, because I don't see the use of violence in anything, actually. I believe that talking over things is always a solution. We get to reach an agreement on something. Though, yes, I agree with some of his words. He's saying that, yes, like what he said, the Constitution says you can demonstrate. But violence now, no. As ZANU-PF youth chairman, we were part of the MDC alliance. We went to the 2018 elections together, holding hands. Eventually, through some of those stances that they're talking about, or they want to take of violence, that big brother mentality that they used to show us, we decided, no, let's pull out. We are a peaceful party. We need to talk.
So are you saying that you pulled out of the MDC because of what you perceive is then a violent tendency of the MDC? That's what you're saying?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, all right. Well, so I don't want
to interject before I forget.
Okay, please, very quickly, then we'll come to Steve.
Yeah, just to interject before I miss what I want to say. I think the debate is degenerated into something else. The term eliminate does not entail violence. You know what? What you are calling
but
for...
history is telling us that your peaceful demonstrating becomes violent. History.
This is what I want to explain. Can you give me my time? Can you give me my time? Can you give me my time, Comrade Matutu? discipline is important.
So
let me deal with this.
I can't take that from you.
No, but
he was interjecting in responding to what he had said. So I think I have got the same
but I haven't
right
completed,
to do the same.
Okay.
Can
I will not accept him telling me to be disciplined.
No, you understand
I think he's got a lot to learn from me.
And
given what he's saying regarding violence,
are you
surely
to
you should be able to listen.
It's my time,
Lewis,
but you're leaving me to talk.
May you please withdraw what he said?
All right, Obey.
May
I was still saying something.
Withdraw what he said.
No, I think you should allow me the neutral one to speak.
all right.
I was still saying something.
We cannot proceed unless he withdraws what you have said.
Yeah, but I spoke my party's position about what...
This is what I was interjecting to.
Andy, if this panel is going to be about people withdrawing statements, I don't think we're going anywhere.
There's nothing...
No. You can't tell me... You can't tell me that I should be disciplined.
But you just accused them of violence.
Gentlemen, given this behavior that you're displaying...
He said, they said you want to have a demonstration.
Are they not violent?
You accuse
Are they not violent?
So withdraw, that is where...
Thank you very much.
But
Okay, thank you very much.
That's why
Thank you very much.
Accept that.
Remember, the show is about dialogue and sitting together and discussing views. So
I'll still insist that for him to tell me to be disciplined, that's way out of order.
Lewis, given this behavior, can
you're wasting time.
Progressively move forward in a dialogue?
Yes,
given
they
the behavior
can.
that
We need to find our language.
Comrade,
Talking to each other.
It's fine, comrade.
We need to understand.
It's fine, comrade. I was urging you to be disciplined.
Are you saying I'm indisciplined? That's what you said.
I withdraw. Don't be disciplined.
Okay, can you finish?
Let me finish.
In respect of our audience, can we move forward and allow Obey to continue?
This is what I was responding to. This friend of mine said, you know, we are talking about mass action here. But I don't know where they're getting this thing of violence. You know, it's one thing to demonstrate, and it's another thing to be violent. As a party, our party culture and values do not entail to be violent.
Okay, let's put the word eliminate aside. Let's put the word eliminate aside. You have mentioned, you continue giving reference to the issue of constitutionalism.
Indeed.
Yet the Constitution of Zimbabwe clearly states the methods or the ways in which a sitting president may be removed. Now, by holding mass demonstrations, how do you seek to achieve the elimination of President Emmerson Mnangagwa?
That's fine, I'll come to that. But it's unfortunate that while this time in the process of explaining something, you're quick to interject, which is not fair. Give me my time.
Okay.
To respond to what Louis was saying, MDC is not violent because he has been referring to our previous demonstrations, which he claims that they end violent. This is the reason why those things end violent. We're the misguided military, which just shoots people who are protesting. But remember that protesting is actually a constitutional right. It happened on the 1st of August. People were shot. They were not armed at all, but they were shot to death. Fast forward to 14 January. People protested again, against the genuine concerns that they have against the current government.
Okay. All right.
They were short again.
Okay. Sorry, I think, no, please. So, I think, yeah. Just finish very quickly if you don't mind, Obey.
It's actually, the problem that we have is actually in the security forces who just come and shoot people willy-nilly. No. People are not guilty for any crime.
I think I need to say now that, please, that the views expressed of the panelists, not those of ZTN or ZANU-PF's group. We believe in free and open dialogue. However, the views are of the participants themselves. Lewis, I think you need to respond.
Oh, thank you for allowing me. Okay, this is the thing. I think I referred to something before when I said that when you look at national issues, they don't require emotions. They must not be personalized. Neither do we need to be to have pride when we approach these things. Now, it is a fact. This is not coming from me. This is coming from history, something that is public knowledge, that we saw violent demonstrations. I don't understand how one can justify looting of shops as a demonstration, a peaceful demonstration. Neither do, I don't understand why and how one can justify lighting up a toll gate as a peaceful demonstration. How can you justify lighting up a police station as a peaceful demonstration? How can you justify, you know, there are so many things that happened. And in a country, in a peaceful country, a lawful country, you cannot expect to be allowed just to vandalize property because you, in the name of peaceful demonstrations. That can never be allowed. Even in America, my brother, They will make sure that if there's anything that is threatening the peace in the country, anything that is unlawful that will be happening, the security forces will take action. It is not for you to like or dislike the security forces. Whether you like them or you don't like them, they are there to make sure that they deliver in terms of their mandate. But one thing that is critical, that I think the MDC must understand, is that even us, as ZANU-PF Youth League, we also have a vote to defend, by the way. And if you think that you are the people that is so special and you want to be heard, you want to make sure that you do everything, that you think and plan behind your boardrooms, and that you take from leadership, the threats that you want to eliminate our president, where would be to look at you eliminating our president, even if you don't know the meaning of the elimination. We know politics and we understand the behavior of the opposition. And this time, it is critical for them to understand that even without the security forces, we're also ready to defend our own vote. We're also ready to defend our own president, whom they want to eliminate, we don't know how. Probably they want to kill him, we don't know what they want to do. So we are ready to make sure that our president is safe and our president will never be disturbed by anybody who is looking for power through means of probably some backdoor arrangement. When people think of those that they lead, then they will understand why they are leaders. Okay. And it is a fact that those without information have got no right to speak.
Thank you. I think that's it.
Thank you. There's something very interesting here. I've been a member of ZANU-PF. I'm a founder member of ZIM-PF. Okay? So anything these guys will say, I have words to add to that. First, I'll start with Stephen. Yeah. Stephen, ZIM-PF is a dead horse. Okay?
To you, maybe.
To you? To everyone.
No. I beg to differ. No.
Sorry. Let me tell him something. They're walking out. They're walking out. Let me speak.
What can you say when I'm here representing my party? How can you say that?
You come here and why are you making it?
He said it plainly. He said it himself.
Stop, please. Stop.
This is the reason why we do not have youth.
Okay, now wait a second. Tell me first, excuse me. We're here to discuss what youth should participate in the dialogue. We're not here to insult each other. We're not here to put each other's parties down. You're free to be in any party you like. Therefore, please, can you please stick to the question and talk about the youth? Because remember, the youth are watching tonight. Remember, words of power. So what you're saying now, remember, people are watching this, and your own members, your own youth members are watching this. So please, let's not insult each other's parties, not insult each other. Let's stick to the plate and let's talk.
Set free, could this be the reason why youths are never allowed to participate and elbowed out of decision-making processes because you're always denigrating each other?
All the generation, they behave like this. You just haven't met them, Muchang.
Okay, all right. Anyway, let's move to the
question. Older than all of us here. But this is the nature of what we're discussing. Is the nature of political discussion.
Can you please answer, but stick to the discussion we're talking about?
Thank you, Mr. Machidi, for that.
We're sticking to the youth perspective.
I was talking about belonging to both their parties, okay?
But no insults, please.
Okay, no insults, yeah. Sorry, guys.
What I just want to say why you left.
When the MDC calls for peaceful demonstrations, I've been in ZANU-PF before, I know this. When the MDC calls for peaceful demonstrations, it is actually ZANU-PF youth who infiltrate those demonstrations to make the MDC look bad in the eyes of the world. I've seen it. I've been part of this ZANU-PF.
Have you ever been part of the infiltration?
No, I haven't been.
So how do you
know that? I know these things were planned in my presence.
To insult my organization.
No, you need to listen, Louis. If you're not involved, that's fine. But I'm telling you, in ZANU-PF,
but I'm a leader.
All right, Louis, I'm going to ask Obey to come in. There is an issue that is is hanging, and I would like both of you to answer. Obe, I would like you to explain, as provided for by the dictates of the Constitution, how mass demonstrations would lead to the elimination of President Emmerson Mnangagwa. And I would like Louis to come in and then explain how, as the ZANU-PF youths, you would defend that action.
Okay, that's fine. Let me clearly state now, and this must be understood by you, including everyone else who's listening. The issue of having mass action is a language that ZANU-PF can only understand, because this is putting pressure on them. And let me tell you, the issues of, the path to power can never be linear. Like what you have just said, we have a process which you also referred to the Constitutional Court that then brought Emmerson Mnangagwa to become the president. Yes, that is the route that he pursued to end up in power. But our mobilization entails that the continued pressure that we are going to put on him together with his cabal in ZANU-PF. They have to realize, and indeed they will realize, that they can't continue leading the people of Zimbabwe on a borrowed time. So this is why you are saying our mass mobilization, our mass action is going to be an answer to the people of Zimbabwe.
In line with what the Constitution says, how exactly would mass demonstrations result in the elimination of President Mnangagwa?
I think I've alluded to that earlier, to say the issue of people power are very fundamental and critical. There's no person in his rightful mind who can stay in power when you see that the people are saying you must go. That alone is enough to ensure that someone is out of power. And this happened before. You know what happened to Mugabe? These very same people in ZANU-PF then chose at a later stage to unite and say Mugabe must go. But we had been saying that since 1999 as a movement for democratic change. They never listened, up until when they wanted to ouster him due to their factional appetites. So the processes can still happen. Was there an election when Mugabe went out of power? Was there an election?
Okay.
Just respond to me. There was no election, but he's out of power. So the question of how is it going to end?
An impeachment process has begun, and ZANU-PF has a majority in Parliament.
Let's think about the end. For now, let's discuss about the process to get there. Thank you.
And how would ZANU-PF youths defend mass demonstrations by the MDC?
I have to respond to what you have said first before I can get to that. You see, one thing that I would want to let you know, and those that are listening know, is that the former president was not removed because of mass demonstrations. For your information, he refused to leave office even after the mass demonstrations until an impeachment process by Parliament, where we hold majority, had begun at Rainbow Towers. That's when he realized that he was going to face an embarrassment. And our central committee as an organization had to vote him out according to our constitution. So I thought I should clarify that just in case you mislead yourselves and thought that probably the one you removed him to power. Coming back to...
and who was pushing the impeachment process?
It was us.
Who moved the motion to push to impeach?
That's another issue.
Yeah, but that's
Can we continue with this?
That's another issue. If you may allow me to take questions from them, not from us.
Please go ahead.
Now, these guys, they at the press conference, and they said that they're going to eliminate President Mnangagwa. They're going to make sure that he's gone. The time is now. Enough is enough. Oh, that's political language, and I understand it from a young person like Obey. But the honest truth is, last time it happened, and we saw what happened. As a party, as a youth league, we will not allow any form of embarrassment or disturbance, whether physical harm or in whatever form, to our president. And this is how we're going to make sure that that doesn't happen. If you talk of eliminating the president, surely you would want to go somewhere where you can eliminate him. I don't know how. You will find us there, waiting for you.
Why are you not listening?
Let me respond, please, my brother. You will find us there. We are where our leadership is, and we are where our party is. We cannot allow a clique of individuals who pretend to be representing masses. And to my surprise, I've never seen Nelson Chamisa in the streets.
I've never said, even yourself, you won't be there when these things will happen. You are planning and exposing young people to danger, planning and exposing young people to criminal activities. So we cannot allow you to keep on doing that. You abuse street kids, they don't have homes, they can do everything. You tell them, go and demonstrate, go and loot. That will not happen again in this country.
Okay, thank you for that. Do you know what is great is that people are actually talking, whether they have divergent views or not. Here at ZTN, people are talking from different parties, and that is fantastic. Anyway, we're going to have to take a breather. And, of course, we'd like to thank, of course, our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, Diamond FM, and, of course, Voice of America, going out to 80 channels worldwide, and our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches. So, please notice, as I said, people are sitting together here. We're all sitting. In fact, you know what? As Stephen said earlier from ZANU-PF, it could be the first small step to start getting dialogue together, particularly amongst youth. Join us after the breather. We'll be back on The Chase. Welcome back to The Chase, live from ZTN headquarters in Harare, Zimbabwe. Now, this is a very special section for us because this is the time when we hear from you. Now, we're getting all your questions flooding in at our Twitter handle at ZTN News and, of course, on Facebook, Zim Papers TV Network. So please, this dialogue, even between you and ZTN and our panelists, is important to us. And I must reiterate, of course, all views expressed on The Chase are those of the participants and do not reflect in any way the views of ZTN and Zim Papers Group. Now then, let's have a look. First of all, we want to give a quick shout out to some of you out there who are regular listeners and new listeners. What have we got there, Linda?
We have Gift Gabriel Komboni watching from Turkey, Munyaradzi Shon Zepete watching from Beijing, China, Tanka Gumede, Tan from Lawayo CBD, Angonizashe Tom, Cape Town, represented here, as well as Trimore Mufane Chia, all the way from Joburg in South Africa.
And of course, Frank Morris Mutize watching from Victoria Falls. Hi, Frank. Wenashe Gawe from Cranbourne, Nyasha Yao Nyanyiwa from Harare, Mandara, Marsh Muna Mupa, United Arab Emirates, all the way there in the Middle East. Welcome. What else there?
And some questions that have come through from our online audience. This is to you, Lewis, from Maguru Ephraim, that don't you think in this Paulet thing you require an independent international mediator?
You want me to respond?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Zimbabwean problems will always be solved by Zimbabweans themselves. If we are to look at a situation whereby in this current situation that we are in, bringing in someone from another country, or rather, I don't know how independent that person will be, to mediate in this particular dialogue that has already started, I'm sure that person should have a clear understanding of our issues, where we're coming from, where we are, and where we're going, and also understand our people, the views of our people, what we stand for, our constitution, our values, and other things. Now, it is us first that must make sure that we make an effort to solve our problems before we think of anyone else from outside. At least we have people we bring in to give a solution for them to get credit, not for us to live in peace. So I think, in as much as I would appreciate in such a situation whereby we have an external hand coming in to mediate in Zimbabwe, I don't think we do have an opportunity right now to bring in such a person, especially when you don't understand
who is the person and what does the person understand our situation as Zimbabwean people? And is it a fact that we have failed on our own, or it is because someone else thinks that we should have an external hand?
Thank you. Setri, what would your comment be? International mediator, a renowned, eminent person, would this something that you would support in the dialogue or not?
Definitely, I would support that. I'm surprised Louis is actually giving an excuse. When the August 6th shootings occurred, President Mnangagwa appointed former President of South Africa, Kgalema Motlanthe, to head a commission of inquiry in a Zimbabwean matter. That was a Zimbabwean matter which could have been dealt with in Zimbabwe. But why did we choose to? Why did President Mnangagwa appoint Motlanthe?
Why would you support an international?
I would support it because it brings probably a neutral person. A neutral person who comes in to mediate amongst these people, just like what President Mnangagwa did with the Motlanthe Commission.
Okay, all right. Stephen?
Yeah, I think I would agree with my brother from Yard there. I think an independent someone would be best, though Zimbabwean problems are meant to be fixed or must be fixed by Zimbabweans themselves, but someone independent would not take sides or would not give, an edge over someone or other party, you see. Okay. So I think, yeah.
Obey, your party's been calling for an international mediator. Do you not think that there's anyone in Zimbabwe? Do you think Zimbabweans can't solve their own problems? What would be your position on this international mediator issue?
Well, yeah, it might not necessarily be of an international figure, but it's about the independence of the person. I think I've highlighted this earlier. I want to say one cannot be a player and at the same time be the referee. So this is the problem that we are having with this particular dialogue. Okay. You can't be the losing candidate, then you want to mediate. And again, to also address what Louis has said, when we are talking about an independent mediator, we are not saying this person is the solution finder. Yes, we agree that African problems for Africans, that's a fact. But we are simply saying mediation also needs neutrality. We cannot have someone with a biased view to become a mediator. Okay. Neutrality is fundamental.
But
neutrality
just
is key.
Throw a question to my brother. Isn't that currently, though they're not part of the national dialogue that's taking place, I'm sure President Mnangagwa was not the one that is mediating that dialogue. Isn't that you've got a neutral person, a neutral organization?
Well, I believe the political parties in Poland get together and decide who should be the chairman of the dialogue.
Yeah, there's a neutral person that is running.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, we'd like to also... please, sorry.
I think the other challenge that we are facing is that we are not really following these steps. I can also refer you to the Chronicle of yesterday or 2 days ago, which clearly highlighted that the pollard, which was called by Emerson Mnangagwa. So whether you then bring... No, he's Mr. Mnangagwa, the president of ZANU-PF. I'm saying...
not the president of the country?
That much I'm not so sure.
Yeah, please continue.
I'm referring to a very fundamental issue that I need to respond to. Not this one.
So I'm saying that's important.
Yeah. I can refer you to the Chronicle of yesterday or rather 2 days ago, which was clearly stating that the pollard was called by Emerson Mnangagwa. So now this is a challenge. Whether you then find someone in between who can be independent, but he who called from the onset.
But surely somebody must call for a dialogue. I mean, surely you can't just have a dialogue where everyone just gets to a corner and we all start talking. Someone must call for it.
This is the point that I want to. This is the point that I want to drive home to you. History is very much important. When this whole thing started, it was Emerson Mnangagwa, without the consultation of anyone, who just decided that we now need to go for a dialogue.
But the thing is, who was supposed to be consulted?
To make his point.
No, I want to make sure that there's no that preponderance of certain utterances that are against my leadership. I want to understand who was supposed to be consulted so that he can clarify issues to us.
This is what I want
to supposed to be consulted.
This is what I want to let you know.
Please go. Please continue.
Please do.
Do you remember that soon after the shootings of 1 August, we as a party, through our president, even called for that dialogue to say, let's come and reason together. You have lost the election, but you have resorted to the killings. This is not fine for the people of Zimbabwe. Because what Zimbabweans also deserve is national healing and peace. We called for that, and it's on record. That is when then you decided later on to say, let's then sanitize our mess by also calling for a dialogue. Because the replication of an online...
Unfortunately, that's your own perspective. You're only thinking,
because you don't follow things.
Gentlemen, unfortunately,
because you don't understand what is happening in a dialogue where you don't participate.
Gentlemen, unfortunately, we're actually coming to the end of the show. You see how when you have great debate, time flashes past. Now, of course, we'd like to continue thanking some of our viewers and listeners out there. Archiford Zanje from Plumtree, Magwaba Moyo, Johannesburg, South Africa, Simbarashe Chihoro from Cape Town, Mai Tinai from Harare, Chishawasha Hills, Brian Chidzomba watching from Cape Town.
And Obey, a question that has come for you from Fred Z is, but Obey, if the institutions are captured, why then is Chamisa always approaching the courts in his fights with Dr. Kupe?
Let me tell you one thing, comrades. What we believe in is to give the people a chance to reform. When you approach the courts, it's just a confirmation of what you'll be saying. The outcome comes as the same. Then we confirm that these institutions are captured. I mean, ZANU-PF, through its institution, should actually be appreciating our gesture. We are trying to give them room to reform, but they are failing to realize that it's important that they reform in time before the people reform them.
Okay, Lewis, please, Lewis, before we wind up the show, so we'd like to have a quick response.
I would want to say that I would appreciate the thinking and reasoning within MDC Alliance, but at the same time, they must always operate in a sober manner and understand that they represent the people as they claim. But they should understand that with or without them, there is a dialogue. It is for them to join, to participate, to understand the importance of that dialogue or not. By the way, we will never wake up tomorrow and see Zimbabwe to have been closed because Chamisa is not part of a particular national dialogue. Never. But it is for them to understand the importance. It is there, but it's going to end because people are working on it, which is very important. And whether they are there or they are not, it doesn't matter. But the most critical thing is violence does not solve anything. And it is when you do want something that is bad, people will look at you and expect you to reform from that. But when you do it for the second time, they will make sure that you won't do it again.
All right, thank you on that note. And unfortunately, we are coming to the end of the chase. Zimbabwe's political dialogue, a youth perspective. We've had some good, stirring debate here, I think, between the youth leaders. And I think it's good that actually they're here talking to each other, even if they have different views. But before we go, of course, we do give you one last opportunity, a quick minute to just say your final thoughts, particularly on this issue, a youth perspective. This is why we're here, so that the youth can hear from their leaders what should be required in the dialogue. Maybe I'll start with you, Sefi.
Okay, thank you. I believe attitudes needs to change. We need youth that is focused on national development. We need youth that talk to their leadership and make sure those leaders sit and talk. That's what we want at the end of the day, because the ground is shaking, the ground is burning. So we need youth leaders, Matutu, Tererai and Stephen. You need to talk to your leaders and tell them that the people are burning on the ground. They need to sit down, all of them, including Chamisa. He needs to sit down with ED and the rest of the guys to discuss the way forward for this country. So basically, I think that's all I can say. And I also want to urge Louis Matutu, the Deputy Secretary for Youth in ZANU-PF, to get healed of a virus, the lying virus.
Okay, thank you.
I want to explain that part. No, let me explain that part. Let me explain that part. You asked the question.
This is your position, please.
Let me finish.
That's so disrespectful.
Louis, let me finish.
For you to tell me that they've got a lying virus.
This is your position. We're not worrying about what other parties are. This is what Yard believes. This is your final summation. This isn't about other parties, it's about Yard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about Yard. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen, then we'll come. Your final word, please.
Yeah, my final words to my brothers, is let's work together, build a better future for the youth of this country. At the moment, we are the leaders, So I think if we hold hands, we sit down, we can map a way forward for the future of this country.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. My last words are specifically directed to the young people of Zimbabwe. What I would like to do is to start by thanking them for rallying behind our President Advocate Nelson Chamisa in the 2018 election and facilitating his undoubtable victory with over 2.6 million votes. But going forward, I'm also urging the young people of Zimbabwe to come together, unite, and defend, secure their future. What you are facing today shall come to pass, and indeed, it's going to pass. The future is for us to defend, and let's come together. Then one more thing that I also want to speak clearly is that going forward, don't be afraid. Let's stand together and ensure that we put things right in this country of Zimbabwe.
Thank you. Lewis, final word.
Thank you. We are what we are because we are Zimbabwean, and we have to take pride and understand that this is our country. We have to work for it. We have to be united and making sure that whatever we do, we are able to account for it. Young people of Zimbabwe must understand that no one else except themselves, ourselves, will be able to solve our problems. But it is my belief that we should do this in a peaceful manner. We should understand and respect the constitution of this country. Violence will not solve problems for us, but to actually worsen our problems. Our economy needs us. We have to make sure that we support the vision of President Mnangagwa, who is the president of this country, whether others see it the other way. But he is the president, and they must accept that and understand that we must work together to support his vision. In terms of industrialization, we must support his vision in terms of education, and we need to revive this economy together as one. Young people must be allowed to access more space in economic activity of this country, more space in politics of this country, more space in our communities as we go forward, as we move forward. We are leaders today, and we are preparing to lead even tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, I thank you for that, and thank you, me and Linda, thank you, of course, for being here on the panel. It was a very lively debate. And, of course, we'd like to thank you, all of you out there, watching us either on our Facebook page, Zimpapers TV Network, and all your comments that are pouring in on Twitter at ZTN News. Please keep them coming. We monitor them, and we'll try and answer if we can. We'd like to thank our broadcast partners, Capi Talk, Nyami Nyami FM, Diamond FM, and, of course, Voice of America, going out to 80 channels around the world, and our sponsors, Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Thank you. Well, anyway, I think that wraps it up from us. And so from me, Andy Hodges, I'd like to say good night. Have a great night and look after each other.
And I'm Linda Muriro. It's goodbye for now.